3 weeks after Catherine's funeral, Rachel finally opened the hope chest at the foot of her grandmother's bed. Inside were quilts, old envelopes, and a worn leather Bible. She lifted the Bible carefully, its gold-edged pages soft with age, and something thick shifted inside the back cover. The document was folded into a tight square, yellowed and brittle. When she unfolded it, she saw the ornate cursive of a marriage license. Rachel's eyes went to the date first, the 12th of June, 1948. Then the names Catherine Wood and Larry Hayes. Marriage license, Catherine Wood and Larry Hayes, the 12th of June, 1948. On the dresser beside her, a framed photograph of Catherine and Frank on their wedding day stared back. They were married in 1951.
1948. That's 3 years before Grandpa Frank. Who is Larry?
The wall of family photos showed a seamless history. Catherine, Frank, their son George, 3 grandchildren, no gaps, no other names. Rachel stared at the document, then back at the hope chest. There was no mention of a Larry anywhere in the family records she knew. She folded the license back into the Bible, her hands unsteady. Whatever her grandmother had hidden, it had just erased 3 generations of the story Rachel was raised on. She drove to the county courthouse, the license heavy in her bag. Online records had shown no divorce. Inside, the 1948 marriage ledger held the same entry, Catherine Wood, Larry Hayes. No divorce decree followed. The clerk handed her a death certificate for Larry Hayes. He died in 1962, in the same town where they'd married. She placed the death certificate beside the license and traced the dates on a map. 9 years of legal overlap.
She was married to Grandpa Frank while Larry was alive, the whole time.
At the library, she scrolled through 1950 newspapers. A small article described a woman fleeing abuse with church help. The article didn't name Catherine, but the town matched. The church had given her a new identity. She printed the page and stared at the photo of St. Mary's Church, the same church her grandmother had attended as a girl. That night, she laid everything on Catherine's bed, the license, the death certificate, the article, 70 years of silence. She pulled an old address book from the hope chest and found a name, Dorothy Price, Catherine's closest friend. Tomorrow, she would call. The next morning, Rachel called the number. Dorothy Price answered on the second ring, her voice thin but steady. She didn't ask why Rachel was calling. She simply said, "Come by this afternoon. I'll make tea." Rachel drove 40 minutes to a small house with a white picket fence. Dorothy met her at the door. The living room smelled of lavender and old books. 2 cups and a steaming teapot waited on a tray.
Sit down, dear. You look just like Catherine did at your age. I found something in Grandma's Bible. A marriage license from 1948 to a man named Larry.
Dorothy's hand paused over the teapot. She set it down carefully, her face suddenly weary.
I've been waiting 40 years for someone to ask about that. I promised Catherine I'd never tell, but she's gone now, and I need to understand for her.
Dorothy nodded slowly and poured the tea. Then she began, her voice barely above a whisper. Dorothy's voice steadied as she began, reaching back 70 years.
Catherine was 16 when she met Larry at a church social. He was charming. Said she was the prettiest girl he'd seen.
They married the following June, Catherine barely 17. The first blow came 3 weeks after the wedding.
It started with a slap. By winter, he'd broken her collarbone. She told the doctor she fell.
Rachel's tea cooled untouched as Dorothy described the worst night, the one that finally made Catherine run.
He put her in the hospital with cracked ribs and a concussion. That's when the church women came.
St. Mary's had a secret network. Women who hid the abused, forged papers, found passage to another town.
They gave her a borrowed coat, a new name, and a bus ticket across the state. She never saw Larry again.
Rachel sat motionless. Her grandmother's entire life had been rebuilt on a secret she'd needed to survive.
She wasn't hiding a scandal. She was hiding an escape. A year later, she met Frank at a diner. He was gentle, the opposite of Larry. She married him in 51, but she never divorced Larry. She was too afraid he'd find her.
The bigamy was born of fear, not deception. Catherine lived with the terror that Larry might appear.
She never told Frank. Not even on her deathbed. Only me and the church women knew.
When Larry died in 62, Catherine wept with relief, but the secret became permanent.
She carried that alone for 30 years. I kept her secret. Now it's yours, Rachel. Use it wisely.
Rachel promised never to reveal it to anyone who didn't need to know. She left Dorothy's house as the sun sank, the weight of Catherine's survival pressing on her chest. In the car, she finally understood. The family history was a kind of armor, and Catherine had worn it every day. She drove back to Catherine's house and went straight to the bedroom, needing to see the license again. She unfolded it and felt the paper was thicker than before. A second sheet pressed inside the fold. She peeled the layers apart and found a letter, 6 pages, in Catherine's own handwriting, to whichever grandchild finds this.
She wrote this for me, or for someone like me.
Rachel sat on the bed, the unread pages trembling in her hands.
Everything I learned today. She wanted one of us to know.
The devout matriarch had left a confession no one was ever meant to find, except the one person who would understand. She hadn't opened it yet. That would change everything. For now, she just held it. The family history Catherine had guarded for 70 years was now in her granddaughter's hands, waiting to be heard. She unfolded the first page with trembling fingers. Catherine's elegant cursive spilled across the paper. I am writing this at 91, so that at least one of you knows the truth. When I was 19, I left my first life with nothing but a borrowed coat and a borrowed name. The letter described the abuse, the escape, the church women, exactly as Dorothy had said. But in Catherine's own voice, I chose not to destroy the evidence. I needed one person in my bloodline to see that leaving is not failure.
She didn't want a historical correction. She wanted a rescue.
The letter spanned 6 pages, each one a plea to protect the daughters who came after her. Ensure that no future granddaughter is ever told that leaving is failure. That is all I ask.
This isn't my secret to keep hidden. It's hers, and she meant it for them.
She folded the letter carefully, the weight of Catherine's command settling into her chest. This was a legacy of protection, not scandal. She sat in Catherine's bedroom until the last light faded, the letter resting in her lap.
If Dad or Uncle Joe read this, they'd call it a scandal. They'd try to hide it again.
Catherine had been the family's moral anchor for 70 years. This truth would shatter that image for the people who still needed it.
But Catherine didn't write this for them. She wrote it for the granddaughters, for the ones who might face the same choice.
She imagined Olivia, just 14, already so quietly independent. Emily, 16 and prickly. Sarah, the youngest, who still saw the world as kind.
They're the ones who need to know that leaving is not failure. That the bravest person in our family was the one who ran.
The plan formed slowly. Christmas was 2 months away, the only time the whole family gathered. She would take the girls aside. She placed the letter back inside the Bible, next to the marriage license, and closed the cover.
I'll wait. I'll tell them when they're ready, and I'll make sure they never feel trapped.
The matriarch's public history would stay intact, but her hidden truth would go exactly where Catherine intended, to the women who might need it most. 2 months later, Rachel walked into her parents' house on Christmas Eve, the worn Bible holding Catherine's letter, tucked deep inside her bag. She waited through dinner, watching her father carve the ham, her uncles laugh at old jokes. The adults were oblivious to what she carried.
Olivia, Emily, Sarah, come upstairs with me for a minute.
What's this about, Aunt Rachel?
She led them into the spare bedroom, closed the door, and the party noise faded to a distant hum.
Catherine wanted them to know the truth. Now, they will hear it from her own voice. I have something to read to you. It's from Grandma Catherine.
From Grandma. She actually wrote us something?
Rachel unfolded the letter with trembling hands, the old paper crackling in the quiet of the room. Downstairs, the family laughed and talked, never suspecting that Catherine's hidden history was about to be passed to the women who needed it most. Rachel began reading aloud, Catherine's voice filling the room as if she were there. To whichever grandchild finds this, if you're reading my words, then the truth has finally found the right hands. Olivia's eyes widened. Emily stopped fidgeting. Sarah leaned closer, her small hand clutching Rachel's sleeve. I was 19 when I ran. A borrowed coat, a borrowed name. The churchwomen said I would be safe, and I believed them.
Grandma? Our sweet, church-going grandma ran away and changed her name. Aunt Rachel, was she scared?
Terrified. But she was braver than anyone knew. She never told a soul until now.
Rachel kept reading. The letter's plea, carving a quiet promise into the air. Never let a future granddaughter believe that leaving is failure. She folded the pages and pressed the letter into Olivia's hand. The Bible stayed with Rachel, the letter with the girls. Around them, the Christmas lights glowed. The family downstairs had no idea that Catherine's hidden truth had just been inherited by the next generation. The girls slipped back downstairs, their faces carrying something new. The party roared on, oblivious.
I am holding a secret that's older than my dad, and I can't tell anyone.
A few minutes later, Rachel's father sidled up to her, concern flickering across his face.
Just tired, Dad. It's been a long few months.
He nodded and moved on, never suspecting. Across the room, Olivia caught Rachel's eye and gave a tiny, almost imperceptible nod. By 10 o'clock, the candles were guttering, and the last of the eggnog was gone. Rachel gathered her coat.
Catherine's secret is safe with them, and now they'll never have to carry it alone like she did.
In her car, Rachel pulled down the visor and looked at the old photo of Catherine she'd tucked there months ago.
Your obituary will stay the same, Grandma. But the truth you hid is exactly where you wanted it.
She started the engine and drove into the quiet Christmas night, the weight of 3 generations finally feeling a little lighter. In the months that followed, Rachel often found herself staring at Catherine's photo, replaying the night she read the letter aloud. The family's public story stayed untouched. Catherine's obituary was never amended, her image as a devout matriarch intact. One afternoon, her phone buzzed with a message from Olivia. I read Grandma's letter again. I think I needed it.
She's really listening. Catherine's words are reaching exactly who they were meant for.
Rachel replied simply, "It's yours. Keep it close." Then she sat back, letting the quiet confirmation settle in.
But one day, she'll face a real test, and then we'll see if the letter is enough.
The seasons turned again. A full year since the funeral. Rachel kept the Bible on her nightstand. She had kept her promise to Catherine. The hidden truth had been passed to the next generation. Safe, quiet, purposeful. But Catherine's letter was never just about the past. Its real impact was still to come. 2 years after that Christmas, Olivia sat on her bedroom floor, staring at a text from her boyfriend. "You are overreacting. Stop being so dramatic."
He's right. Maybe I am overreacting, but my stomach knots every time I see his name flash on the screen.
She pulled Catherine's letter from the drawer where she kept it, the paper now soft from repeated unfolding. She found the line again. The one Rachel had read aloud 2 years ago. Leaving is not failure. It landed differently now.
My great-grandmother wrote this. She said leaving wasn't failure, but I feel like a failure.
Her therapist asked what she would tell a friend in the same situation. Olivia's answer came faster than she expected. That evening, she typed the message she'd been rehearsing in her head for weeks. She sent the words, blocked the number, and felt the terrible weight begin to lift. Then she called Rachel. The first words out of her mouth were, "I left him, thanks to Grandma." Rachel closed her eyes. Catherine's hidden truth had just saved her great-granddaughter, exactly as intended. A week later, Olivia walked into the cemetery alone, a single daisy from the grocery store clutched in her hand. She stopped at her great-grandmother's headstone, the name Catherine Reeves crisp in the autumn light. She knelt and placed the flower at the base, her fingers brushing the engraved dates.
You didn't know me, Grandma, but you saved me. From myself. From a guy who made me feel small. Leaving wasn't failure. It was the bravest thing I ever did. Thank you for teaching me that.
30 yards back, Rachel stood beneath an old oak, watching. She hadn't planned to follow Olivia there. She just needed to see.
You did it, Catherine. She heard you.
Rachel turned and walked back to her car, leaving Olivia alone with the sun and the quiet. This moment wasn't hers to interrupt. Olivia stayed for a long time, her hand resting on the cool stone. Then she stood, her shoulders straight, and walked away without looking back. The daisy on Catherine's grave caught the afternoon sun, a small white marker that the hidden history had finally done its work. That night, Rachel sat alone in her apartment, the leather Bible open in her lap. Beside her, Catherine's photograph smiled from the nightstand.
She didn't hide her secret. She planted it like a seed, waiting for the right soil.
She traced the faded date on the marriage license, the 12th of June, 1948, and thought of Dorothy, the churchwoman, the borrowed coat.
Every generation has its own Larry. Catherine made sure the next one had a way out.
She closed the Bible gently, the letter and license tucked inside, and held it against her chest for a long moment. Then she stood and placed the Bible in a small drawer in her dresser, beside her grandmother's pearls. She would keep it there, not hidden, but waiting in case another girl in the family ever needed to read those words.
The obituary stays as it is, but Olivia knows the real story. That's enough.
She picked up the photograph of young Catherine and looked at the determined eyes she had never noticed before. And Rachel smiled, because the truth that had once erased 3 generations had just saved one. Olivia grew into a confident young woman, her laughter a testament to the weight she'd shed. The letter stayed in her drawer, a quiet touchstone. Emily and Sarah, now older, found the letter again one quiet afternoon, reading it aloud to each other. The hope chest, sealed and stored in the attic, held the Bible and the license under a layer of old quilts. On Rachel's nightstand, Catherine's photograph caught the morning light, her determined eyes unchanged after 70 years. Rachel never spoke of it to her father. He never asked. The obituary remained as it was, but sometimes, late at night, she opened the drawer and traced the faded ink, hearing her grandmother's voice. Olivia visited the grave each autumn, leaving a single daisy on the cold stone. She never met Catherine, but she knew her better than anyone who'd sat in the same pew. The hidden history had done its work, a life saved, a cycle broken. Some inheritances aren't about what you leave, they're about what you protect from repeating. Years passed, and Catherine's house remained in the family, the bedroom kept as a quiet memorial by unspoken agreement. Rachel returned there often, her hair now silver at the temples, to feel the weight of the hope chest and the silence it held. Inside, the leather Bible had taken on a deeper patina, its pages absorbing decades of quiet waiting.
The truth is still here, waiting for whoever needs it next.
She didn't open the Bible. She knew the words by heart. Olivia visited the grave every autumn, a ritual she never missed, even when she had her own daughter. The daisy, there was always fresh, a small marker that the hidden history had become a lifeline. And in Rachel's drawer, the letter stayed, though the ink was fading and the paper growing thin. Some truths are too heavy for a family to carry all at once, so they are passed quietly, one generation at a time, until they reach the person who is finally ready to break the silence. The license stayed folded in the Bible for decades after Catherine's death, its ink a permanent scar on the family's official story. But Rachel no longer saw it as a scar. She saw it as a map, one Catherine had drawn for whoever finally had the courage to follow it. The dates still clashed: 1948, 1951, 1962. A jumble of numbers that had once made the family history impossible. Now those dates told a different story. The year she escaped, the year she rebuilt, the year the monster died.
3 generations of a story, and all it took to rewrite it was a borrowed coat and a borrowed name.
Olivia would carry that truth into her own future, not as a burden, but as proof that the bravest women in her bloodline had been the ones who left. Rachel sometimes wondered what Catherine would think if she knew the Bible had been found, the letter read, the silence broken. But then she'd look at Olivia's smiling face in a photograph, and she'd know Catherine had planned for exactly this. The obituary would never change. The public story would hold, but the hidden history had done what it was meant to do. It had erased 3 generations of family history, and then it had saved the next one. Rachel, her hair now silver, would sit by the window in the evenings, the leather Bible on her lap like an old friend.
It took 30 years, but I finally understand why she kept it. Some truths need a safe harbor until the storm passes.
Olivia, now a mother, had framed the letter in her daughter's nursery, right beside a picture of Catherine. The hope chest, still dust-covered in the attic, held the Bible and the license, a quiet monument to a hidden past. In a drawer beside Rachel's bed, a copy of the letter remained, its edges worn, a silent promise kept. Emily and Sarah would sometimes ask Olivia about it, and she would tell them again the story of the borrowed coat and borrowed name. Catherine's house remained in the family, the bedroom now a sunlit space where a great-grandchild played, and in that room, a small framed photo of a young woman with determined eyes watched over them.
She didn't just survive. She made sure we would, too.
The truth had not erased the family. It had made it whole, at last, in her final years. Rachel would sometimes open the Bible just to look at the license, the paper so fragile it threatened to crumble.
This one piece of paper erased 3 generations of stories we told ourselves, but what grew in their place saved us.
She thought of Olivia, now a grandmother herself, who still placed a daisy on Catherine's grave, every autumn without fail. The ritual had become a thread linking the generations. Catherine, Rachel, Olivia, and now Olivia's own daughter. The hope chest in the attic had become a family heirloom, its secret no longer a weight but a gift. In her neat cursive, Rachel had added a note to the letter, "To whoever finds this, you are not alone. You never were." Rachel closed the Bible one last time, her hand lingering on the worn leather, a small smile on her face. Outside, the sun set over the Pennsylvania hills, the same hills Catherine had crossed in a borrowed coat 70 years before. The marriage license remained in the Bible, its ink now a testament to a woman who had rewritten her own story. And in the quiet of that room, the hidden history settled, not erased, but finally understood. On a clear winter morning, Rachel opened the hope chest for the last time, its hinges sighing with the weight of decades. The scent of cedar and old paper rose, a fragrance that had once clung to Catherine's hands.
You saved Olivia. You saved me. You saved every woman who comes after us.
She placed the Bible back beside the marriage license and closed the lid with the same tender care Catherine must have used 70 years before. She settled into the armchair by the window, the morning sun warming her face, and closed her eyes. Outside, a fresh snow blanketed the Pennsylvania fields, silent and clean, as if the world had been made new. On Catherine's grave, miles away, a single daisy lay against the stone, though no one had visited that morning.
You are never forgotten, Catherine. Not as long as we remember what leaving really means.
The afternoon light shifted, falling across the worn leather cover of the Bible on the table beside her, and the hidden history, once a wound, once a secret, settled at last into the only inheritance that had ever mattered, the truth. Rachel's breathing slowed. In the big armchair, she looked like she might simply be dozing, a slight curve still on her lips. Beside her, the old Bible rested open, the marriage license and letter nestled together in its spine like 2 halves of the same secret. Olivia found her hours later, but she did not cry. She simply knelt, kissed Rachel's forehead, and saw the truth still held in her hands. The funeral was small. Just the girls, now women, and a few old neighbors who remembered Catherine. They buried Rachel beside Catherine, 2 daughters, generations apart, finally resting under the same Pennsylvania sky. In the years after, the hope chest was opened only by family who already knew. Rachel's scarf, a pale cream, still held the faint scent of lavender, folded beside the license as if she might come back for it. 100 years after Catherine crossed the state in a borrowed coat, her great-great-granddaughter would read the letter and smile. In the end, the license that erased 3 generations of family history became the proof that some things are never truly lost, only borrowed, only waiting for the right person to break the silence.